Hello, all viewers. Just making sure the voice and video quality is good. We'll be starting our tournament in about 8 minutes. We have to wait for some time. And we have a request from Just Trick Opening. Please analyze GM Bobby Fischer's game. Sure, we will analyze your game. If you don't mind, can you put your name, please? I can take your name and your ID, and then I can uh, analyze your game. Hello, Saksham. I can see your comment. So yes, I'll take your game as well. I think it's Hidden Chess Master, if I'm not wrong. That's your ID. Yes, I can see a comment from you, Narendra. Hi, hope you are doing well as at your home. Just yes, I got your request. I am going to analyze your game, and yes, I'll be doing it for Saksham also, the Hidden Chess Master. So the tournament is about to start in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, any queries, if you want me to make a video on something, you can just let me know in the comment section. I will try to cover the those topics in the next videos. And yes, Narendra, yes, there are a lot of strong players today. 2400 rating player is going to play today from the Nagpur Chess Warriors. I did see here. This is the 2400 player, and I think he is from Turkey. So that's nice. Nice to have a Turkish player playing for Nagpur Chess Warriors. That comes in Nagpur comes in Maharashtra, if you are not aware. And then we have again a player from Turkey. So few players from Turkey coming in today and adding a very good value to this tournament. We have Seat 1111 from Prayagraj Future GMs. And let's check who is the next one. This is also Azerbaijan, very nice. We have one from Russia. We have from Vadav, I think, is from India. Macro Killer is from Spain. Sonrai is from Ukraine. So there is a lot of variety today, guys. A lot of players playing from out of India for this beautiful tournament, which is nicely lined up and going to start up in about 1 minute and 50 seconds. We have full house today. All 10 teams are playing, and we also have 8 leaders today. So there are going to be 8 leaders from each team. Previously, we used to have 6 leaders or 5 leaders or 3 leaders. We started with 3 of them, but now we have reached to 8. So it's going to be very nice tournament. So I can see a comment from Saksham. Yes, Saksham, we are going to add Nagpur Chess Warriors for the remaining of the week. That's a request from you to add it for all the coming days. Yes, we will do that. Nothing to worry about. We are happy to have all the good players from all over the world playing our tournament and giving us some beautiful examples that I can explain to all of you, all the viewers out there, and even you can enjoy this. There are a lot of combinations, opening tricks and traps. Every player teaches us something new. So for every player, every new player that is coming to our tournament, we can expect something new, some new opening to be played, some new tricks in the game, some new traps to observe. So it's going to be a very nice tournament, guys. If you have not played, I request you to get your ID, join the team, and play this tournament. It's every day at 9:30. Also share with your friends as much as possible so even they can enjoy this beautiful event. This timing is perfect, 9:30 to 10:30, because then you can have your dinner if you are at home, and then you can relax and sit and at least watch live broadcast or at least try to play a game or two. It relaxes me actually. Even I have noticed when I come from job with stress, if I play for some time, it's the best medicine for your stress. Chess is one of the best medicines for your stress. Okay, so let the tournament begin now. Yes, so we are waiting for the first game here. Okay, but okay, let's start first. Try to get the top game, and then we will go to the request. I want to see the 2400 rated players game here. So I think it's loading up. Okay, so let's check what happened in the opening. So this is the game is between CM Paranoyak from Turkey. He's playing for Nagpur Chess Warriors, and we have Ekojam from Indonesia with the rating of 2287 from Gujarat Lions. So what happened in the opening was e4, c5, knight f3, d6, pawn to d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, pawn to f3, pawn to g6, pawn to c4, bishop to g7, knight to c3. So this kind of setup, it's is similar to what we say as Marozzi bind. This setup is actually not this idea of this setup is not to allow black to easily play a6 b5 break, or even e6 and d5 breaks, or even the simple d5 break which we generally see in the Sicilian dragon variation. This is a dragon variation which the fianchetto that black has done here. This is a Sicilian dragon variation. And if you like to play Sicilian dragon, you should follow Hikaru Nakamura. He is one of the best players of Sicilian dragon in today's date. So bishop to e3, knight to c6, bishop to e2, bishop to d7, castles, and we have pawn to a6. Idea is to play b5, but most of the times actually this is not effective. Generally in this pattern, the plan of knight d7 and knight c5 is observed to just try to counter this center position with the knight on c5. And then probably I think b5, rook b8, and b5 breaks can be played. Okay, so a6, queen d2, rook e8, knight c2, rook to c8, rook to d1, knight to e5, knight to a3, queen to c7, rook to c1. So nicely building up, both the players are nicely building up this position. And we have bishop to e6. Now the c4 pawn is under tremendous pressure. We have this knight piling up, this bishop, this queen, and this rook. So four attackers right now, and defenders are one and two defenders. So this pawn is capturable. To save this pawn, now white has played pawn to b3, supporting this c4 pawn. But you can see how positionally strong both these players are, not making sure that there are no weaknesses in the position. So queen a5 is one of the again nice moves here. One of the critical variations is when rook is on f8. That allows white to play knight d5 so that this queen is under attack. And if black plays queen takes queen, then first knight takes e7 check happens as this rook is still on f8. King has to move, and then rook takes queen can be played. So this is one of the traps that you should remember in case you are playing against Sicilian. If black plays queen to a5, you can always look for this trap knight d5 when this rook is there on f8 and this e7 pawn is unsupported. Okay, so that trap you have to remember. So queen a5 was played here. Then we have knight to e4, queen takes, a queen exchange was offered, bishop takes, and knight to d7, bishop e3, pawn to f5. So black has now started playing on the king side. He has chosen another front to play here. And after f5, we have pawn takes f5, bishop takes f5, pawn to c5, knight takes c5, knight takes c5, and pawn takes c5, bishop takes c5, knight to c6, and knight to c4. This is the live position, guys. Rook has been now moved to d8 square by black. Bishop to b6. Now the rook is under attack, and thus this probably will put white in charge of the open d file, as this other rook from e8 cannot come to this d8 square. I can see a comment from Mayank. Mayank, I can see your comment. When will be the next cash prize tournament? Soon, Mayank. I was busy a bit, but I'll try to arrange the next cash tournament very soon. And Mayank says his favorite opening Sicilian Dragon, and he gives a dragon smiley. So that's nice. Even I love Sicilian Dragon. I have played it for many years. Actually, I started my career with Sicilian Dragon, and then I shifted to e5. Then I shifted again to sometime I played French defense in my career. Then again I switched back to Sicilian, and now I can see that I'm having flavors of all these variations, knowledge of all the variations here. Okay, so now a nice check on this d4 square. Is it creating any kind of tactic? Because no need to capture the bishop because this bishop has been supported by the knight. So king movement is absolutely fine here. And what if now this bishop takes b6 is played? Bishop takes b6, knight takes b6. This rook is under attack. It can be exchanged with the rook on d1, or it can be moved to rook d4 also. So pawn e5 has been chosen by black here, making sure the central pieces are very strong. And yeah, g4 is now played. So white is just trying to create some play here, something that he can count upon. Bishop d3 now. I think h4, h5 will be planned so that this bishop and pawn can attack the g6 squares. So this bishop, I really like this bishop because it's controlling the critical square of d8. I can see a comment from GM Bobby Fischer. Yes, GM Bobby Fischer will be taking your game next because you had requested the first game to be analyzed. Yeah, so we'll be taking your game next after this game. And then we have Saksham also in the queue, so we'll be taking his game as well. So Bishop d5 has been played, and now these two bishops are like two swords that you can hold in both of your hands and attack your enemy. So one of them has been exchanged, and knight now comes to d4. d7 is now attacked, and I think rook d6 could be played. Knight takes, yeah, knight takes d5, rook takes d5, and now bishop c4. This is invisible pin. It was very difficult to spot in the first place, and now black has lost the exchange in a simple blunder out there. And now even this knight is pinned right now. Knight cannot move. So this is not going to be easy for black now. Black has lost. It's a check and mate. So it's a simple miss. Let's go to the blunder move. Yep. So this was the okay. So bishop to d5 is something which was not the greatest of the moves because it allowed knight b6 fork to this rook and this bishop, and then bishop c4 is something which you need to have very good eyes for this and very good tactics understanding that bishop c4 can pin any piece on d5. So it's important to bring something on d5 other than this bishop to pin it. If possible, bring the rook, and that's what white did here. White just exchanged his first bishop on d4, knight captured on d4, and knight b6, attacking the rook as well as the bishop. And now this bishop can be captured so that the rook can come on d5, and this beautiful pin from bishop c4 to g8 is something that will be unstoppable, and that's what happened in the game. Rook takes d5 and bishop c4. So this was the winning move, and even if this was not available, e4 e5 pawn was a weak pawn in black scam, which is vulnerable, and probably after saving the f3 pawn, black would have put the pressure on the e5 pawn as much as possible. So that's the game, guys. Let's now check Bobby Fischer's game. He has requested in the comment section. Even you can request your game, guys, if you are playing this tournament. So the ID is GM Bobby Fischer. GM Bobby Fischer, yeah. I got your ID, Bobby Fischer. Let's check whom are you playing against. So you're playing against Anish Naik, and let's check what happened in the opening. So Anish Naik is playing from GM, the Chess Blasters, and GM Bobby Fischer is playing from Prayagraj Future GM's Chess Club. So D4, C6, then we have Bishop G5. Again, that's an interesting move because it's very rarely played. Bishop G5. It's generally after Knight F6 or the after a few moves. It's visible the Bishop G5 move. So Queen to A5, Bishop to D2. Let me just refresh this page. It's okay. The game is over, but let's check. Let me just refresh this page, guys. Yeah. So okay, so bishop g5, queen check, bishop went back to d2, queen to b6, and bishop to c3 was played here. Knight to f6, knight to f3, pawn to d5, knight to d2, bishop to f5, pawn to e6, and that's the way to play, guys. Look at the black pieces. Of course, this bishop, instead of keeping this bishop back in this in the same colored pawn chain, if you look, this is a light colored bishop and the pawns are in light color. So if the bishop remains on c8, it is going to be a long-term problem. So you have to make sure that as early as possible you get this bishop out to f5 or at least to g4, and if required you can capture here, only if required, and if you feel that is going to give you a better position. But keeping the bishop on c8 in long run is it's not good for your health as black over here. So that's bishop f5. I really like this move, just getting rid of all the bad pieces very soon. And pawn to e6 now, making his way for the bishop. So bishop to d3, knight to d7, castles, bishop to d6, bishop takes f5, e takes f5, and then knight to h4, attacking the f5 pawn, which is a weak pawn. And now g6 saving the f5 pawn. Knight goes back to f3 and then castles. We have knight to b3 and rook to d8. Rook to d8, actually I am not sure why this move is played in the game. There could have been some other move here which would have helped in building up the attack. So the problem here is that how is black going to attack here? That is a big question. If you look at the position, this there is a certain weakness in black's position, but we have this bishop sitting over here. It's not away from the game. It's still there in the game. It's attacking this beautiful h2 pawn and maneuvering the bishop here. I'm not sure about that if we should do it, but bishop right now on d6 is doing a fantastic job. So probably putting the knight on e5 and getting another knight to f6 and probably supporting this e5 could have been slightly a better plan. I feel that, but it might not be the best, but that's what I think we should have tried here. Okay, of course, knight e4 might be replied with knight d2 or this knight d2, but the other knight can jump to f6 and support the e4 square. So rook d8 was played, but this I'm not sure about the purpose of rook d8. Uh, Probably I think I'll need to ask Bobby Fischer later in the game. So knight to g5, queen to c7. Now the h2 pawn is attacked twice with the bishop and the queen. So pawn to f4, and now knight to g4, attacking the e3 pawn. This is the attack. There is attack on e3. Of course, f4 has shut down this bishop's diagonal. But look here, black has this beautiful open file with the target on e3 now, which he can attack at his will. Queen to f3, rook to e8, rook to e1, pawn to h6, knight goes to h3, and now knight to f6. Knight to f2, knight takes f2, queen takes f2, and knight to g4, queen f3, and rook to e6, pawn to h3, knight to f6 back. And just a minute, guys, I just want to check. So here, instead of playing knight g4, I think rook to e4, rook to e6 was better, because knight h6, it's just provoking this h3 pawn, and knight comes back to f6, and nothing is achieved with white to play. So I feel that instead of putting knight on g4, first rook e6 could be played. It's not the best move, but I think could be played, or even this c5 square is something, because knight c5 is going to be annoying. And if you capture the bishop takes c5, d takes c5, this bishop is going to be the superb attacker in the game. So you have to make sure that c5 square is also guarded. Probably play b6 or something, just to make sure that it's nice. Knight is not a happy piece on c5, and then probably put the rook on e6 and then the rook on e8, and probably join the attack by queen e7, and then probably create some threats on knight g5. Keep knight g5 pending, let him play h3, let him waste his move to stop your knight from coming from g4. If you play knight g4 right away, then he'll play h3, you'll have to come back again, and then it's white to play. It means that white has gained one move. So don't give away such tempos, guys. Okay, so knight g4, queen f3, rook to e6, pawn to h3, knight to f6 back, rook to e2, rook to e8, bishop to d e1, knight to h5, bishop g6, knight takes g6, queen takes g6, and king to h7, rook to e1. So right now, black is nicely lined up in this beautiful file, and there is a bishop takes f4 threat coming right now, and I think that's what he played on the next move. Yes, so this e3 pawn is pinned. If you carefully see, this e3 pawn is pinned because this rook is attacking the e2 square, and bishop takes f4 is now available. That's what actually I think helped uh, black to score a win here. So bishop takes f4 was played, queen to f3 back, bishop to g3, as it is being supported by the queen on c7. There is nothing for this bishop to worry about. And then we have knight to c5, rook comes back to e7, and then rook goes to f1, f5, f4, sorry, pawn to e4, and we have pawn to b6, knight goes back and pawn takes, and this is winning position for black now. Two central pawns with all, his king is safe, there is no threats right now, knight doesn't have any scope, and all is well for black here. So let's go back and just try to figure out which was the turning point of the game, guys. So the turning point of the game, I feel that when this, let's go back a few moves. So f4, whenever this f4 was played, actually f4 is the turning point of the game, I feel. As a white, you might feel happy that this bishop is temporarily blocked here, permanently blocked, not temporarily, but you are creating a weakness on your in your camp, guys. You have to think a lot here. You should, if you're playing positionally, make sure that you don't create such weaknesses, especially where there's already an open file for black. So black doesn't have to think here. He just knows what he has to do. He just has to attack that e3 pawn once, twice, thrice, n number of times as possible and capture it for free. If not for free, then capture this f4 d4 pawns. If the e3 pawn is pinned, that's what happened in the game, that e3 pawn was pinned and f4 pawn was free. So making these moves like f4, you have to think twice, guys. Don't create weaknesses in your game. This e3 is the weaknesses, so you have to identify the turning point in the game. In this way, you have to analyze each and every game. That's the way, that's the key to improve your thinking in every game. You, what you do is you just play online game. Even if you win, you lose, you don't care to analyze it. That's the mistake that you do. Never ever waste your game. Always analyze your game after your game is done. That's the first step towards success, analyzing each and every game. When you're tired from analyzing, play next game. When you're tired from playing, analyze. So it happens in the cycle, guys. Okay. So playing, analyzing, and studying, it has to happen in cycle again and again. So let's go back to tournament, and now we have to check a game from Saksham, that is Hidden Chess Master. I think he's playing from Nagpur Chess Warriors. Let's quickly try to search his ID. Hidden Chess Master, yeah. So whom are you playing against, Saksham? You are playing against Nandu from Gujarat Lions, and we have Hidden Chess Master from Nagpur Chess Warriors. Let's check what happened in the game, guys. So d4 was played by Nandu. d4, knight f6, knight f3, pawn to e6, pawn to e3. So pawn to e6 is one of the favorite moves of Nimzo Indian players. They like to play this setup. Sometimes they also play e6 and b6 and bishop e7, and then probably play d5 or c5 to attack. So these are Nimzo players. So from the first couple of moves, you should understand the psychology of a player, that what kind of openings, what kind of middle game he must be liking, and accordingly you can change your game as well. If you feel that the opponent is playing e6 and if he is trying to play b6, or yeah, you can see a b6 has been played, so that's, he is going to try to attack the center on the e4 square as much as possible, black. So if you are, if it's possible for you, you should devise a strategy as much as possible and try to surprise your opponent in the early part of the game. Okay, so we have pawn to c5 here, and the game was over, but let's check what happened in the opening. So e3 c5, bishop d3, pawn to b6, and the castles. Then we have bishop b7, pawn to b6, knight to c6, pawn to bishop to b2, bishop to e7, knight to d2, pawn takes, and knight to d5. This actually gives a very nice setup for white. Actually, look at these two razor sharp bishops. Okay, so by any means, if this e5 pawn is exchanged somehow, and if this diagonal opens up, this bishop on b2 is going to be one of the best pieces on the board right now. So it's going on very nice, guys. Let's check what happened in the game. e3 was played. Of course, c4 is now expected, but this knight b4 becomes annoying trying to exchange this bishop. So to avoid knight b4, e3 has been played here. So then we have knight f4, bishop to e4, pawn to d5, bishop d3, and castles, bishop b5. Here I think knight d3 should have been played. Knight takes d3, c takes d3, and then there will be a double pawn on white's d file. That's what actually I think black should have played here. Just create double pawn, so this bishop would be a dead bishop then. Okay, because this pawn will still remain on the d4 square, and this pawn will come on the d3 square, and most importantly, black will get rid of one of the most attacking pieces of white from d3, which can launch very good attack on this h7. But and also creating the weakness on d3 and d4, which can be attacked with bishop a6, and bishop to d3 can be an attacking plan. And then you have to think about putting the pressure on d pawn also by playing bishop f6. Queen can come to d6, queen can come to f4, so that this d4 pawn is attacked with the queen, with the bishop, with this knight, and d3 pawn is attacked with this bishop on a6. So all kinds of threats was there. So you should have captured this d3 bishop hidden chess master, that is Saksham. It's a tip for you. So castles played, bishop b5, pawn to a6, and then we have bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, knight to e5, bishop to b7, pawn to g3, knight to h3, king to g2, knight comes back to g5, pawn to f4, knight to e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4, and queen to e2. And now we have queen to d5, nicely putting up all the pieces here on this king side, this bishop and the queen here. And I think it has to be blocked now by, okay, c4 was trying to attack the queen, so queen comes to d8, and now rook to e1, bishop to f6, knight to g4, bishop takes d4. So that's, I think, was a free pawn, or I think free piece. So e3 was played here. Now this rook has come to d1 and the bishop cannot move. It has been pinned by this rook. So pawn d3, pawn e3 was played. Check to the king, king went to g1, and then we have queen to c7. The d4 bishop has been sacrificed here. Bishop takes d4. Was there a way to save this bishop is the question now. Was there any way that this bishop could have been saved? No, I don't think so there is any way, but mm, nope, I don't think there is any way to save this bishop. Even e5 is not working, h5 is not working, f5 is not working, f5, no. So there is no way to save the bishop. Okay, so pawn to e3 check, king to g1, and queen to c7, pawn takes d4, queen to c6 now. Trying to deliver a mate on h1 square here, guys. So this is a check and mate for all the beginners out there. So knight takes e3 was played, queen check, queen to h2, queen to h2, king to e1, and queen to g3 check, king to d2, and rook to. But this is actually not the best, because after, okay, rook d8, king c3, and queen to g6, rook to g1, queen to e4, rook takes g7 check, king to f8, and queen to h5, threatening a mate here on f7. Now I think that's unstoppable. Bishop rook takes d4 and queen takes f7 check and mate. So a very nice game, guys. Let's check what was the turning point of the game. Okay, so for every game there is some turning point, and that is what you have to identify. So knight e4 here, knight e4, knight takes e4, d takes e4. I think could have been a problematic for white, because white should now realize that this e4 pawn cannot be captured easily. Okay, there's no light square bishop which can attack this pawn, and probably he could have played knight g4 and knight f2 and tried to attack the e4 pawn somehow, but this e4 pawn is going to be trouble for white, and that I think was the turning point of the game. So queen e2 was played, then queen d5, and slowly white was using this e4 pawn. Black was using that e4 pawn very well, but eventually this d4 bishop, actually that was the blunder here. This was another turning point of the game, guys. So bishop takes d4 should not have been played here. That was a preliminary mistake. Bishop could have gone back to e7 here. Bishop should have taken back to e7, and then probably pawn to f5 could be played, and then again put the bishop back on f6 to attack the d4 pawn. Even queen c7 and then rook to d8, attack this d4 pawn multiple times. So bishop d4 was the blunder, and then again the game was changed here. Okay, so next let's go to the next game. Okay, so next game is between let's pick up another game where very nice high rated players playing today. Let's pick up this game. Sorry, guys. So the game is between Ronka Rafi Tiwar and Hitman. Is from Team Future and BCC. The game was drawn, but there must be something to learn from this game. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, pawn to c4, pawn to e6. So this is again the same Maroczy bind structure that I explained in the first game, that white tries to play c4 and e4 in order to stop black's d5. So this d5 is not possible from black side, and because these both these pawns are controlling the d5 square, and even the threat of a6 and then b5 is not possible, because then this pawn can capture on b5 and give a bad crooked structure for black here. So Maroxybind is something that you can Google out and try to play from white side if you don't want to play main lines against Sicilian defense. If you want to just put up a solid fortress which is not easy for black to break, you can use the Maroxybind pawn structure. And Maroxybind ideas is something that there are huge lectures on YouTube on Maroxybind. You can just Google out how to play Maroxybind from white against Sicilian. You will get a lot of videos that will help you to develop your positional game from white side against Sicilian defense. So knight takes d4, bishop to c5, bishop to e3, queen to b6, and now knight to c2, queen takes b2, knight to d2, bishop takes e3, knight b3, knight takes e3, and then queen to d4. So this is not the way the Maroczy bind has to be played. There was one move short from white side. The queen b6 and queen takes b2 was should not have been allowed in first place. So knight to e4, knight to e4, queen to e4, and pawn to c5. This is a huge plus for black now. Just he has to make sure that his king is safe. Knight to c4, queen to d4, knight to d6, queen takes, rook takes, and pawn to b6, pawn takes, and knight takes c8, rook takes c8, rook takes d7, rook to d8, rook takes, and it's a rook. And uh, actually, this should have been a plus for black, but somehow white was able to draw. Pawn to g6, rook to b1, rook to d2, and now bishop to c4, knight to a5, and rook to e2, rook takes b6, rook to c2, pawn to h4, king g7. I think knight has to come in the game very soon now. Okay, just trying to repeat some moves. White was trying to repeat the moves and go into a draw. I was just wondering if no, so this spinning was not possible because a bishop is hanging, and there is also this knight e3 check possible so that this rook can capture the c6 rook. So rook c6 cannot be played here. Bishop d3, rook to c1, and rook to b4, knight to e5, bishop to f1, and king to f6, rook f4 check, king g7 back, and rook comes back to the e4 square, and still there are no tactics remaining. Okay, so knight to knight c4 could have been played here. No, knight c4 is not possible because bishop and rook are both attacking this. So if knight was on f, I'm just thinking about the fork. So if knight was on b3, for example, and then we could have like rook takes bishop, king takes bishop, and knight to d2 check was possible. So I'm just wondering how we can put knight on some square from where it can jump to the d2 square. Okay, so just keep tactics in your mind, developing the tactics in your mind. So knight runs to d7, rook to d4, knight to f6, rook to f4, pawn to h5, rook to a4, and knight to g4. Now that knight is making some sense from the g4 square, trying to attack the f2 and trying to create some mating threats out there. But the bishop on e2 is annoying. He has to make sure the knight is safe. So knight f6 and rook a2, knight to d5, bishop to f3, king to f6, and I think that is something white would have liked to capture the knight probably. No, but this d pawn will be the passer. So pawn to f5, rook to a8, rook to c2, and king to f1, pawn to f4, rook to g8, pawn takes, and king to f4, f5. So king moves again, knight f6, rook wins the knight, and then pawn to e5, rook to f7, king to e6, rook to g7 now, and pawn to e4. The bishop is hanging, so bishop goes to the g2 square, and king comes to f5. So black is nicely developing. Okay, so this was the turning point probably of the game. Bishop h3 check was allowed, and the idea is that if king moves, then this g6 square can be g6 pawn can be captured. But I think knight g4 should have been played here. That's what I feel. If bishop takes, then pawn takes, and at least I mean this pawn is going to fall as it is. So let's try to hold on to it, even though it's not a connected pawn. Let's try to put some pressure on this e3 square. You can g3 square. You can play e3 king e4, e3 king e4, and king f2 probably could have been tried here. So but black chose to give away the g6 pawn, so pawn to e3 now, rook to g5 check, king to d4, rook king f1, knight to e4, bishop to g2, and still there is no fork out there, so pawn is pushed now and king moves. And now it would be interesting to find if we can bring the knight to the d3 square. So rook check was given, king takes pawn, knight takes rook, pawn takes, and this is what actually black tried to go into an ending with exchange up. But instead of playing this, let's check if we had something else here. Could we have played a move like knight to c5? I think rook would have captured the c5, king takes c5. The idea of knight c5 is to make this knight d3 available so that this king can be checkmated right away. So Knight c5 could have been considerable. I'm not sure. Okay, we'll have to calculate this. Endings are very tricky in when there are minor pieces on the board. So knight c5, knight d3 was the threat here. Even so, what white or black went for was this rook check, and then king takes pawn and knight takes, pawn takes. At least this would secure a draw now with the minor pieces or with the rook on the board. It would be at least a draw, if not a loss for black. So it's a nice way to at least okay. This pawn was given away. I think this was played under time pressure. So bishop e8, and I think now this h5 pawn should have been supported. No, it's not supportable right now. So rook moves and bishop takes, check, bishop back, and I think yeah, this is how the draw happened. So nice game, guys. I really enjoyed this one. A very good game from both of the players. So now let's try to pick up the next game. Okay, so I had disabled the comments. Let me check if there are any requests from. Uh, we don't have enough players. Hello everyone. Fair play PCC. Okay. Okay, so we have some. Okay, so no new comments or requests. Let's check the next game. Let's check the game between. We saw Ron Kaur's game. We didn't see Manish Kapoor's game. Let's check Manish Kapoor's game. So Manish Kapoor is playing from Prayagraj versus Eko Chum from Gujarat Lions. He is from Russia, Indonesia. Okay, and Manish Kapoor is from India. So what happened in the game? E4, C5, D4. So this is the Mora Gambit. When you play E4, C5, D4 from fight side, this is called as the Mora Gambit. This is one of the anti-Sicilians that you can try. Anti-Sicilians are there are, I think 5 to 6 anti-Sicilians. First is this one Mora Gambit. Then you can play Wing Gambit, that is E4, C5, and B4. Then there is Alapin. There is Grand Prix wherein E4, C5, Knight C3 can be played, and there is one E4, C5, Bishop B5, Rasolimo attack variation. Then there is one E4, C5, Knight F3, D6, D4, C takes D4, Queen takes D4, that is checker variation. So all these variations are like anti-Sicilian that you can learn from the YouTube. There are a lot of anti-Sicilians. I mean, there are a lot of videos on anti-Sicilians that you can explore and you can learn to destroy Sicilian defense from white side. Pawn to c3, pawn takes, knight takes. So this is the accepted variation of Mora Gambit. There is other variation if you're playing Sicilian defense. If you don't want to go take any risk, you can just push the pawn to d3 so that this bishop can capture, and then you can develop your normal moves like d6, e6, knight f6, bishop e7. So this generally goes into a c4 array. Again, the Maroczy bind like structure with the pawns on c4 and e4. So d takes c3 was played, accepted. Knight takes c3, knight c6, knight to f3, pawn to g6, bishop to c4, bishop g7, castles, and knight to f6, pawn to e5, knight g4. Okay, rook e1 supporting the pawn on this e5 square, but it is now gone for free. So this is again, I think the turning point of the game wherein this e5 was provoked by this knight on f6. It's very tempting to play e5 here to disturb this knight on f6 to disturb the harmony of king side here. But after e5, this little move knight g4 make sure that this e4 pawn is no more defendable. But it also makes sure that this f7 pawn can be sacrificed if allowed. But let's see, rook e1 was played, knight takes, knight takes, knight takes, and bishop to b3. Okay, another variation was to play bishop to f4 instead of rook e1, just to keep rook to f1 back and play bishop to f4. So now in that case, if knight takes e4, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, and queen d5 check can be given and captured this bishop back. So I think that yeah, king f6 is available in that case. Let me explain you again. So this now rook is back. I'm just explaining it. Bishop f4 was playable. If knight takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, queen to d5 check. King f6 is forced to save this bishop. Then we can have knight e4 check, king to f5, and I think knight h5 check should do the job for white here. So a lot of combinations here. Knight g4. We need to study this. This must be study, or there must be some theory behind this. Knight g4 was played almost immediately, but okay. Rook e1 was played here. Knight takes e5. Knight takes e5. Knight takes e5. Bishop to b3 castles. Bishop to f4. Knight to c6. Knight to d5. Pawn to d6. And now bishop to c6 idea is bishop c6. B takes c6 and knight takes e7. So to avoid this, bishop e6 has been played now. Just make sure that e7 pawn is no more attacked by this rook, and also in return, this bishop is attacking the d5 knight. So rook to b1, rook to e8, pawn to b4, pawn to a6, bishop to b6, and pawn to b5. Bishop comes back to c2. I think it okay. C2 bishop b3 was not available because of knight takes b4. So knight to e5 now, bishop to b3, rook to c8, and rook to c1, knight to c4, bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, b takes c4, and now this is going to be the weak pawn in the black's camp. How is black going to defend it? So knight to f4 is the first move to eliminate the defender, and queen b8 has been played. This is a live position, guys. Let me quickly have a sip of water. Yeah, I'm back. Uh, okay, so queen b8 has been played, and white is still thinking how to take advantage of the c4 pawn. Pawn to e3 has been played, saving the pawn on b4. So guys, make sure you like the video. All the viewers out there, don't forget to like the video. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. That keeps me motivated. Also share with your friends so that even they can enjoy this beautiful event every day at 9:30 p.m. live on our favorite channel, Khelo Chess India. Bishop f5 has been played now. Just trying to make sure that this pawn push, it comes with superb support with this bishop out there on g7 with the bishop on f5, and probably rook can join the party on c8, and even queen can join the party by playing queen b5, queen a4, and supporting the c2 pawn. So a lot of things, lot of money spent on this, pushing this c pawn by black. Can he play pawn to c3 now? Is that playable? Yeah, bishop d4 is something which I think bishop d4 can be okay. Queen to b5, challenging white's queen on the d5, and he is out of time. That is how you should not play, Manish Kapoor. You have to spend some good time. I mean, you have to use your time wisely. Here, I know that you are under time pressure in in the middle game position, but let's go back and try to find out where was the turning point of the game. Okay, so first of all, giving away the e5 pawn was not the right way to play. Sorry, giving away the white pawn, e pawn was not the right way to play. So probably e5 was not expected here. And even if e5 is played here, I just explained that bishop f4 was maybe better. I'm not sure. Bishop f4 is something that you can calculate and check. Even bishop f7, I think, is playable here. Bishop f7 check. Bishop f7, king f7, knight g5 check, king moves, and queen cross g4. That's available. Knight takes e5, of course, it's there, but still you can find that the black king is not in best of its positions. So there were a lot of tactics here. Instead of playing rook e1, you could have thought about more tactical game, more attacking game here. That's what I feel. You can still analyze your game, Manish Kapoor. If you're listening to this commentary, or if you're watching this in future sometime, this is something that you can work upon. Let's go back to tournament now and check the next game. Let me try to join the tournament and play a game in the Berserk mode if I get a good opponent. Let's check. Generally, I get very weak opponent when I start playing because I'm on 0 points. And okay, resign please. I'm not sure why Dumbledore is asking to resign. His opponent must have left his game and not resigned. Okay, so let's try to pick up another game here. I'm just waiting for. Let's check who is leading from the individual point of view. So user, okay, I got a game against Mahendra. That's what happens, guys. I get a very low rated player, but that's okay. I should not judge any player with the rating. Every player has his own tactics, tips, and tricks. So this is called as Danish Gambit. You can just try to play it against the new players. You can say, not, I will not say weak players. Nobody is weak, but you can just try it against the new players, and they might find themselves in a bit of soup then. Okay, knight c3 can be played. Bishop b5. So knight is now. Let me play knight to c3. I think bishop g4 is expected now. So bishop g4. I'm going to play bishop e2. If knight f6 even, then I think, yeah, bishop g4 has been played as expected. Bishop to e2. If the bishop would have been on c4 and bishop would have been on g4, then knight e5 was possible in that case. Give sacrificing the queen on d1. There's a famous game out there which you can try to find out. Now that's tiring. Bishop has to come back on g3 now. I know, guys, this game is not the best one that you would like to enjoy, but just trying to play a game quickly, just trying to create some quick play here with the berserk mode, but the opponent is playing slow, so I can't help it out. I think this will be exchange on f3 now. Bishop takes f3 or knight takes f3 or bishop e7 is expected. Pawn to d5, a free knight here. Let's try to capture the free knight. And bishop takes e2 will be played. Queen takes e2 will be played. Another free piece, I think so. Let's capture with the bishop this time. This knight is supported with the bishop. So not a good game, guys. I hope this game quickly ends now so that we can go to the next game. Knight to d5. Let's try to attack the queen and knight now. Just try to exchange the pieces quickly. Knight f6 check. This king e7 is expected. Yeah, so queen king e7, queen d7 check, king takes f6, queen f5 check, king g7, and queen f7 is check and mate, guys. So queen d7 check, queen f5 check, and then we have. Let's try to wait for the opponent's move. Only one move is remaining now. King f6. Yeah, queen f5 check. So king e7. If king e7, then yeah, I think there is a way to escape. Queen f7 check, king to d8, and long castles here. Bishop d6 is playable. Okay, so there's a mate on d7. Sorry, guys. King d8 and queen d7 is check and mate. Let's go to the next game. Okay, back to tournament, and let me pause first. I don't want to play the next game. Let's try to cover the next game. Let's check who are leading today. So Nagpur Chess Warriors is on 141 and Prayagraj on 124. So a very close competition, not so close, but still Prayagraj can come on top. When we have Gujarat Lions on 118, then we have BCC on 117, Chess Blasters on 79, Chess sorry, Bait Mendano on 81 and Chess Blasters on 79. I think Bait Mendano just came to the fifth position. Then we have Team Future on 79, Golden Castle Chess Club on 67, Khelo Chess India today on 52. Not the best performance today, guys. Yesterday, I think we came fourth or third, and today we are on ninth. Abhi Chess Club is on 24. So, Abhi, you need to get more players in your team. So, let's check the next game between. Do we have any game here? Let's try to check this game. Butterfly Knight, 2300 rating from Nagpur Chess Warriors, and I think that's from India. And Gulbari is from Russia, from Gujarat Lions. So let's check the opening. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, D4. A Scotch came here. And pawn takes D4, Bishop to C4, Knight F6, pawn to E5, pawn to D5. So Bishop to B5, Knight to E4. And I think this generally in these lines, Black has the last laugh. He generally gets better position here. Pawn takes and castles and bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, pawn to c4, bishop to e3 and pawn to d4. Now this bishop is running out of squares. Knight d2, knight to e4, queen to d5, trying to attack here on g2. So we have this live position. Rook to e8 was played here. Rook e1, rook d8. So both players trying to build up the attack, but Black is lot better here. As soon as this knight moves, this knight is going to create some havoc by developing the mating threats on g2. I think still we have rook e6 and rook g6 available to get some attack on the g2 square. But c5 was played. Idea must be to play this d3 pawn. Pawn takes, and get a passer on d3 then. So white has to play here. It would be difficult choice for white right now. There is no clear way to defend this position. Knight on f3 is in very bad situation. He cannot move at all. And now d3 I think is knight e1 is something I can, yeah, knight e1 was played immediately as I said it. Knight e1, it came to my mind just now. It will defend the pawn on g2 as well as it will support the d3 pawn, d3 square. And now knight can come back to f3. But this already is winning position I think for black because this d2 pawn is not capturable. g5 and knight takes g5 is not possible because it's possible. After knight takes, I think rook g3 can be played. Yeah, that's what white played, but this is going to be c. I think h4 is now something that's expected. Yeah, pawn takes, king h2 can be played now. Okay, so pawn takes has not been played. I think rook, no, rook cannot move right now because there's a mate threat on this g2 pawn. Queen c2 check. Yeah, queen c2 check. As I'm seeing, the moves are happening right now on the board. Queen c2 is possible. King h8 is probably forced now. Rook g6, interesting again. Rook d1, avoiding this queens right away. So I can see a comment from Shivani. Hi Shivani, hope you are doing well. Good to see you back after so many days. Hope you are all good, safe and sound at your home. Now the h file is open, so anything can happen right now. So king h2 and rook d1 is not possible. Yeah, it's possible. But again, this threat becomes critical then. Suddenly white has started gaining some hand or something in the game right now. So I think bishop f6 would be interesting because then there would be a mating threat on this rook h3, king g8 and rook to h8 check and mate. That's what actually white is trying to achieve here, putting the bishop on the g6 square, f6 square. Yeah, I think bishop f6 will be played now. And this rook cannot be moved because it's been pinned by this queen. Yeah, bishop f6 has been played, and now this rook h3 becomes suddenly such a difficult threat to handle. I think king g8 will be played right now. Queen e4. Interesting. What about this rook h3, rook h6, and rook takes probably. Still, this e2 pawn is going to d2 pawn is going to be the decider in the game. Yeah, so I can see Saksham's comment. Saksham is saying Nagpur is now on 150. Yes, Nagpur, very good players from the Nagpur Chess Warriors going at a very good pace and having a good position today. And Shivani says she is well. Okay, that's good to hear. So opposite colored bishops, this bishop versus this bishop, both are opposite colors. So as long as rooks are there on the board, there is a chance to get a good result. Else, this would be ending in a draw. King to e3 can be played now, attacking the bishop. Bishop f5 is expected. Bishop f5 has been played, and now bishop is okay. King d4. I think rook has to move. Rook c6 was played. So both these players, look at the rating, guys. Both these players are nicely rated. 2300 for Butterfly Knight and 2191 for Gulbari. King f5 and this pawn now. I think the rook, yeah, rook d6 is something that nice mothering of this king to the d7 square. And now white is under tremendous time pressure. Rook check. Rook a4 is possible, yeah. Rook a4 and try to capture the a7 pawn. Rook c2 or rook, yeah. This pawn is attacked. Bishop f6 is expected now to support this pawn. Now I think this pawn should be pushed. Will be pushed. Rook b3 check first. King moves. Now this king has to come back in the game. Also, this pawn push is necessary now. King b8 was played. Extraordinary move again. Rook to a3. Rook I think will be taken back. Yep. And now rook b2 check is available. Rook b2 check, king to c1, and then there was rook to c7 possible. So hence black avoided the check there. So it's going to end up in draw, I think. Finally both. Okay, so black won on time. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back to the tournament now. And still we have last 6 minutes, so let us pick up the next game. Let's pick up this one, Macro Killer and Andre. Andre is from, I think, yeah, Beat Mindano, the Philippines team. And 18 moves, a short game. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, D4, the Scotch game. This is called as the Scotch opening. And pawn takes, Knight to F6, Knight to C6, B takes C6, pawn to E5, Queen E7, Queen E2, Knight to D5, pawn to C4, pawn. Okay, Bishop pins the pawn on C4. So pawn to b3 and the queen to h4 and bishop to b2, bishop to b4. So this is not the best position for white king. This bishop is trapped actually. This is not how you should have played white. Uh, Knight to d2, castles, and rook to b8, pawn to g3, queen comes back, pawn to g4, bishop to c3, and now queen to e4. Just making sure that this pawn is no more pinned and this knight can be attacked now with the pawn. So queen to b4, pawn takes a sacrifice here by, and I think that's losing the queen because bishop takes d2, white is losing the queen. This queen is being supported by the knight on the d2 square. So this is the blunder, guys, which led to the loss of white here. So I think instead of capturing the knight, bishop d3 would have been better move. Bishop d3 probably threatening the mate here. So g6 would have been played in that case, and then f5 probably was the next move to open up the king side, or even h4 can be played, h4, h5. So let's go back to tournament, guys, and check the next game. Okay, let's check the next game. Let's check this game, Gujarat Lions and BCC. So e4, e5, d4, pawn takes d4, Bishop to c4. This is a Danish gambit, guys. So when e4, e5, d4 is played, this is called as Danish gambit. Lots of gambit today. So two things we see, we have seen a lot in this today's live broadcast. If you want to learn these two things, pay attention. First is gambits. We have seen a lot of gambits today, and second is we have seen Maroczy bind positions against Black Sicilian. So e4 and c4 pawns are been maintained in the center by white to play Maroczy bind variation against black Sicilian when black plays Sicilian. So knight to c3, bishop to g4, pawn to f3, bishop to h5, bishop to e3, pawn to c6, queen to d2, rook to e8, rook to d1, knight to d7, bishop to b3, knight to e5, and knight to f5. Knight is just trying to enjoy his little outpost on f5, which will soon be covered by this bishop and threatening to capture him. But he has some time to enjoy over there, like a small vacation on f5. So bishop goes to f8, and now knight takes d6, rook to e7, and rook to knight to f5 comes back. So rook to d7 now, queen moves to e2. This knight is supporting the rook, so it cannot be captured. Both knights are supporting, so it cannot be captured by the queen. So queen has to move, queen a5, and rook takes, knight takes, and rook to d1, rook to e8. Now this is what black will try to cash upon, because if the bishop moves and this queen is unsupported, then queen takes f5 comes into the game. As right now this knight is supporting queen, so the queen is being well supported. The game is over, but let's check what happened in the game. So rook e8 was played, queen to f2, and pawn to g6 attacking the knight. So yeah, so his vacation is now over. It's coming back to g3, and now knight to e5, bishop to g5, attacking the f6 knight, which can be captured for free now. So bishop to c5, trapping the white's queen, but I think bishop e3 would save the day for white, and he has played bishop e3, knight to g4, double attack on queen and the bishop. So pawn takes, again knight to f on g4, again attacking both the pieces, and now queen takes f7. F7 pawn was hanging, and that's what black missed here. Black missed this one, and I think it's going to lead to a check and mate very quickly. So king to h8, queen to e8 check, king to g7, queen to g8, king to f6, and queen to h8, king e7, and queen h7 check, king f6, and knight h5, gh5, queen to f5, king e7, rook to d7, king moves, and queen f7 check and mate. So this is what happens, guys. So let's go back to the game and check the turning point of this game. So bishop, first of all, bishop c5 was a good spot from black to pin the uh, white's queen, but the bishop comes back to e3 and saves the day for white here. But ng4 again is a good spot. So two back-to-back good moves from black, but he missed something, that this f7 pawn was hanging and can be captured for free, and then white is going to mate black in a few moves. So knight g4 is good to spot, but at the same time you should not leave your defenses. So this was something that black missed altogether. So knight f6 was knight g4 was not the best move here. Probably something else could have tried. Yeah, I think rook probably just exchanging the bishops was a simple idea here, and then probably you could have tried to put your rook on d8 to get it exchange with this d. This queen is supporting the d8 square. So no clearer idea for a black here how to continue. Spotting knight g4 is good, but yes, missing the defense is bad. So make sure you keep a balance of both. So let's go back to tournament, and I think we have hit the zero. The tournament is now over, and these are the final winners of today's 61st Khelo Chess India team battle. Nagpur Chess Warriors have won with 194 points, 18 points ahead of 18 or 20, 28 points ahead of the Prayagraj Future GMs, and Gujarat Lions is on third position on 153. Then we have BCC on 145, beat Mindano Chess Prodigy on 124. Chess Blasters on 110 and Team Future on 106. Golden Castle Chess Club on 77. Kero Chess India today on 63, not performing well. I think we had full house, but it's not the best performance from Khelo Chess India. From the individual point of view, we had beautiful players today, 2400 and 2,300 players. So Singham Dance from Nagpur Chess Warriors is first right now, and he has scored 37 points. I think he is from India. Then we have RML Linda from Golden Castle Chess Club from Sri Lanka. And then we have user Unspotable from Prayagraj Super GM's Chess Club, Future GM's Chess Club on 30. Then we have Andre from Beat Mindano Chess Prodigy. This is a Philippines team. Then we have Harsh Mahajan from BCC, Macro Killer from Nagpur Chess Warriors, Trey Young from Gujarat Lions, Butterfly Knight from Nagpur Warriors, and Achieving Heights from Nagpur Warriors, Ronnie from BCC. So good combination of all the teams at least having some players in top 10, except I think Khelo Chess India and one or two teams. But it was a beautiful tournament. Good to have so many players. 163 players participated. That's a very good count, guys. And of course, I have analyzed your games. I have explained all the tactics and the openings as much as possible. Bind is something this live streaming can be dedicated to. Bind and the gambits. So if you are interested, you can watch the video again. And I think that's all from today's live broadcast. If you have anything, any questions, you can ask in the comment section. I'm still live. I'll be taking your questions. I am looking at the comment section right now, but there is no comments, no new questions. Make sure you like the video, guys. That keeps me motivated. Subscribe to the channel, share with your friends as much as possible. Tomorrow again we will be live at 9:30 p.m. So make sure you, your friends, everyone knows about this live broadcast, and you spread the word and let them also enjoy this beautiful event from tomorrow onwards. So that's all, guys, from my side. If you have anything, any questions, just let me know in the comment section. I'm waiting for a couple of minutes to get the questions. And if there are no more questions, then we would be happy to close today's broadcast and publish the results and the video to all the group in all to all the members in our group. Okay. So anything else you have, guys, just let me know. I am still waiting here on the live broadcast. Let me quickly have a sip of water and come back. Okay, so no new questions right now, guys. And just to let you know, there is new video coming from Khelo Chess India about the problems that we face while joining the tournament from Leech's app and Leech's website, and how to overcome those problems. I get a lot of questions from all of you that how I'm getting an error while joining the tournament. What can I do? So I have all the solutions in the video now. Even you can share that video with your friends and with your family, with your students, with your coaches, so that no one faces the problem of joining the tournament and miss the fun, learn something new in their life by missing out on chess. So I think that's all, guys, from my side. Good night. Bye bye. Take care until we meet tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. India time.